With Salah, Son, Kudus and Hwang Hee-chan off to international duty, in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the best replacements. We're also going to be taking a look whether or not you should be buying back Erling Haaland in game week 21 and whether or not we should potentially take a punt on KDB. The big discussion for game week 21 is going to be what do we do with our players off to AFCON and the Asian Cup. Obviously, as you can see from this graphic, there is a hell of a lot of players going off to this tournament. Salah, Kudus, Jackson is on there as well, potentially if you own him. Son, Hwang Hee-chan, a very popular pick indeed. And obviously, I feel some people still aren't aware, like Kudus was one of the top transferred in players this game week. I think he nearly hit 200,000 transfers in for game week 20. So I don't think people are quite aware what is actually going to happen to these players. They're all going to be missing game week 21. Some could be back for game week 22, some could be back for game week 23, and then I think after that we will start to see more and more additions as well. As you can see with this graphic, real useful graphic from Rob T FPL, amazing graphic put together. I think it kind of outlines when certain players are going to be back. Obviously, the likes of Son and Salah are probably going to expect to reach the final or at least the semi-final. So we're probably not going to see these players back till at earliest, probably game week 25. So we need a plan in place, who we're going to be buying, who we're going to be selling, and what kind of strategy we are potentially going to go for. And I think that is where this next graphic comes very much into hand. As you can see, I've outlined 5 players, all from different price points that I think potentially could work their way into that team. We will come on to talk about KDB in a little bit. I think he potentially could be an option, but with many of us looking to get Haaland back into our teams for this week, with us having potentially two transfers as well, I think we are potentially looking at that slightly cheaper midfield option. So we're going to start off with Cole Palmer. Obviously a fantastic performance against Luton today for him, 2 goals and an assist, and as you can see over the past 5 game weeks, 3 goals, 3 assists, good underlying data to go with that, and the second highest points scored amongst these players that I've selected over that time period. Quite high ownership at 22.4%. The fixtures for Chelsea are starting to tank off a little bit. They do play Liverpool, City and Tottenham within the next 6 fixtures, but you also get Fulham, Wolves and Crystal Palace in there. So some very, very good fixtures mixed in with some more difficult ones. But for 5.6 million, I think this guy is an absolute bargain, ladies and gentlemen. You cannot go wrong with potentially picking up Cole Palmer. He's on penalties. He's arguably Chelsea's best player this season as well. Starting to add, on-field kind of goal contributions, not just from the penalty spot as well, but it is that nice addition to get a penalty taker for such a ridiculously cheap price. The fixtures aren't there, but I think if you wanted to rotate around, arguably the next 4 are pretty good, minus the Liverpool game, but I'd still be very tempted to sell him. With a penalty taker, you always get that added bonus of having them with the spot kicks. It's always just like an unlimited asset that I feel you can drain off of. Next player we're going to talk about hasn't played in game week 20 yet. It is Jarrod Bowen, a very popular transfer in, and for very good reason. Sheffield United and Bournemouth up next. Jarrod Bowen has been phenomenal so far this season. 11 Premier League goals for him. I think it's only Erling Haaland that is above him, currently matching Mohamed Salah as well before even playing this game week, so could go above Mohamed Salah before he goes off to AFCON as well. And look at the data that he's been putting up, pretty good. Obviously he started the game at 7 million, he's now up to 7.9. He is an asset that I do feel could potentially rise throughout the rest of the season. Obviously, there are a few concerns with West Ham. Obviously, Kudus has been such a massive part of that kind of attacking front three. Him and Paqueta. Paqueta kind of having a little bit of an injury at the moment as well. So we are going to have to see how kind of that dynamic works with him potentially leaving. Is it going to impact Bowen and his kind of attacking output? I'd probably say not. I still think he's going to be pretty consistent. He has been for numerous seasons now, and he's one of my favourite players to own in this game. Any chance I get the opportunity to, I absolutely love owning him. The next 2 are great. The 2 after, Manchester United and Arsenal, I'd probably say United is in a red fixture at the moment. It's probably more Virgin on a grey/green. Arsenal, again, they're definitely there for the taking at times this season. We saw that already. West Ham beat them. Jarrod Bowen getting that controversial assist as well. So could even contribute yet again in those games. I'd be very happy to play him during those difficult periods. And with him being such a kind of nailed figure, 90-minute man, I would be very happy picking up Jarrod Jarrod Bowen as a potential option. The next one is a guy who was highly recommended in my stream today. It is Phil Foden, 2 assists against Sheffield United. I think that's kind of what you'd be expecting from one of these kind of more like established players within the Premier League against the bottom half side. City's fixtures are actually pretty good. Newcastle away in the next game, but I wouldn't be too fearful about that one. They are currently bottom for XG conceded over the past 5 game weeks. Then it's Burnley, Brentford, Everton, Chelsea, Bournemouth, and then the Manchester derby as well. The only concern I do have around Foden, I do think he's a really good pick. And I was super tempted with him, but I didn't expect KDB to be on the bench today. He didn't come on, but we will talk a little bit more about him and whether or not that is actually going to impact Phil Foden's minutes, because I personally do think it potentially could impact Foden's minutes. Could see him potentially get dropped onto the bench, maybe some early substitutions as well. So I think I like Phil Foden as a pick, but with KDB potentially being back, see how he gets on in City's FA Cup game, whether or not he plays in that one, we could see kind of reduced minutes for Phil Foden in my personal opinion. Moving on to the next option, and it is Michael Elise, a player I've seen nobody talking about. This man has picked up 40 points over the past 5 game weeks, has been in terrific form, the most goals on this list, the most goal involvement on this list as well, and has started to take some penalties as well for Crystal Palace. Eze is now fully fit, so I do think he'll still be the #1 penalty taker, but Elise has been dabbling in them as well, takes free kicks and corners as well. Arsenal up next isn't the easiest of fixtures, but then it's Sheffield United, Brighton, Chelsea, Everton and Burnley. A pretty good run for a player at 5.8 million, 1.1% owned as well, would be a super big differential. I think if people are potentially maybe looking at Gordon replacements as well this week, obviously Newcastle's next few fixtures are a little bit tricky. He started to kind of blank as well, not putting in the same numbers as he has been doing. Michael Elise could be a very, very fit option. I've not seen anybody talk about him, picking up super good data as well to go along with his attacking returns. And after this Arsenal game, Palace do have a nice fixture run, and I'm quite tempted to replace Gordon myself in game week 22. But if you're looking for the 21 replacement, he could be it, but maybe game week 22 when they've got Sheffield United could be that little bit more like spicy of an option, to be honest. I'm going to say it there. I'm going to, this is the first time we're mentioning Michael Elise. Could be the last, but I don't think it will be. I think with these good fixtures coming up, he could be a player that continues to get dropped in these transfer recommendations and starts to work his way out into the FPL community. Right, finishing up, we're going to talk about Pascal Gross. Now, he has been okay. He's been alright. 1 goal, 3 assists. Pretty good underlying data as well. 29 points, 6.4 million. Again, another super low owned player. The Brighton fixtures, are immense. Wolves, Luton, Palace, Tottenham, Sheffield United, Everton and Fulham. Some real strong fixtures for Brighton, to be honest. Obviously, with Pascal Gross, it's a little bit different. There's quite a lot of rotation within that Brighton side. You never know which asset to quite pick, but Pascal Gross seems to be the one that is playing the most minutes, is picking up the most points. So I think if you were to take advantage of this really good fixture run, he ideally probably would be the one that I would go for, with Matoma and Dingra being out as well. I probably would be a little bit more tempted with João Pedro if I was to pick an option rather than going for Pascal Gross. I think just with him you get that penalties, that little bit more attacking threat as well, and better data, more likely to score goals, more likely to pick up assists as well. So I do think he is just that little bit of a better option, but I think Pascal Gross is a fantastic player to potentially have a little look at. But those were the 5 players I've outlined as potential replacements for players off to the Asian Cup and AFCON. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments section, and let's move on to the next segment of today's video. KDB and Haaland could be options for game week 21. We're going to start off with the guy on the left-hand side, Erling Haaland. Obviously missed the game against Sheffield United in game week 20. That was the game we really probably wanted him for. A very easy captaincy pick for that game week, but it's not happened. He is out injured and still could be out injured for game week 21. Now, there's quite a big break between game week 20 and game week 21, so don't feel you're in any rush to potentially get this man back in your team. Don't be kind of fretting about price rises, price decreases, just to try and get him in your team. Game week 21 starts on the 13th of January, so about 2 weeks of kind of recovery time for him potentially to be back in that lineup. Personally, in my opinion, I think he's going to be back for game week 21. If not, he's definitely going to be back for game week 22, which is right at the end of January. So in my personal opinion, for my team, I need him to be back for game week 21, because if I want to get him for 22, sorry. So if I want to get him for 21, I've got to take a minus to get there, and I'm not kind of comfortable doing that, but it might have to be done at some point. But I feel for a lot of people, I feel the ideal situation with a lot of people having 2 transfers is him being back in 21. Now, there is an FA Cup game. Manchester City are playing Huddersfield in the 3rd round of the FA Cup next weekend. So if Haaland is on the bench or potentially features, or at least we get some positive comments about Pep Guardiola's press conference, we're going to at least get 2 of those with the FA Cup and then the Premier League as well. So we should get some positive news, or at least some news regarding Erling Haaland. We also have plenty of good kind of leak news kind of outlets for Manchester City as well. FPL Main Road, FPL Totti as well on Twitter, both very reliable. They will probably get early news for that game. And looking at it, Manchester City are like one of the first games on the Saturday. Now, they're not the first game. Obviously, it's Chelsea-Fulham. Then it's Newcastle versus Manchester City at 5:30. So I reckon we might potentially get a leak before the deadline, but it's quite a sporadic and spread out game week, to be honest. But I still think Erling Haaland potentially could be back for that game week. That's quite a weird one. That must be like the winter break one that they did like 2 seasons ago. I was just looking at that then. Yeah, it's quite spread out. I'll put a screenshot up of it. But like they played basically over like 2 weekends. Pretty weird, but at least we're getting some Premier League football. But I reckon we'll get positive news around Erling Haaland, hopefully in the FA Cup press conference. If not, it should be for the one before their game in game week 13. In game week 21, on the 13th of January. Moving on to the guy on the right-hand side, KDB, a very popular pick in FPL over the past few seasons. I think a lot of us have fond memories, especially me personally, the Wolves game where he absolutely slapped. I had him as my captain. I think it was a hat-trick he picked up. Phenomenal stuff. Obviously, with Salah and Son both going off to their representative kind of national kind of competitions, this opens the door with us having a lot of budget. Maybe a potential double game week announced in game week 25 as well, which could be very juicy. And if that's the case, then arguably, you know, KDB is looking a pretty good option, because realistically, if both Son and Salah get to the final, we're still going to have all that money kicking around for game week 25. And KDB is just one of those players that is phenomenal at times, absolutely exceptional. I think Manchester City have missed him for large parts this season. If he was fit and available for that Newcastle game, the run after that is Burnley, Brentford, Everton, Chelsea, Bournemouth. Realistically, if we're looking for Son and Salah to potentially be back around 25 and 26, it means you'd probably be swapping him for the Chelsea and Bournemouth game, and then Salah would come back with Brentford and Luton, so that would make sense to me. Son would have Wolves and Chelsea, so probably a little bit of a split, but I definitely think if he is fit, he is a player I think I might potentially bring into my team. Obviously, I pointed out some of the other great quality midfielders early in the section. I think there's some fantastic names, especially if they enable you to get Haaland back in, but I feel if a lot of us kind of have a lot of budget still to play with, and KDB is fit, and City potential get that double game week announced in 25, he could be a phenomenal option, ladies and gentlemen, indeed. That was today's video. If you did enjoy the content on the channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Like I said, we're trying to hit 3,000 subs before my birthday at the end of January. That would be nice if we could do that. But thank you very much for watching today, ladies and gentlemen, and good luck this game week.